Adam, you're a director within our company and you've worked with some wide variety of clients. And there's one in particular that we're going to talk about here today. There's a lot of themes that we want to touch on here as far as, a high growth company, a private equity owned company that's growing through acquisition. Maybe to start off, maybe just tell us a little bit about the client and give us an understanding of the size and scope and complexity of the clients themselves.
So this particular client had in the ballpark of 3,500 employees, 42 locations rather across North America. So an international spread that had grown by acquisition largely. They had over a dozen different acquisitions that grew their company that led to just as many more brands to have to worry about with regard to product lines. And all of those companies themselves had different ways of doing things, and bringing them together under one model was really one of their challenges, particularly from a digital space perspective. So large company, somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion with some aggressive growth goals. They were private equity owned. They had some interesting wrinkles in it as well. We had a lot of fun with that project, and I'm looking forward to telling you more about it.
Great. So why did they reach out to us? What was the problem statement of what they were trying to solve when they first reached out to us and hired us to help them through the transformation?
Yeah, all of their brands, as they acquired them, were on different versions of different software. Some of them more mature than others. One of them is mature as being up on the most recent versions of SAP ECC 6 just before HANA came out, and then others on antiquated green screen technology, old Epicor platforms and stuff like that. And they were really looking to figure out how it is they might roll out one software across all the companies.
Yeah, and really build on and leverage some of the technology they had, but at the same time look at ways to upgrade that and improve that over time. So what in this first phase of work, and we're kind of honing in here on the first evaluation and call it the strategy and evaluation stage of the project, what was the scope of what we did or what the client asked us to do for them?
Yeah, so we started out by visiting a dozen of their locations to document their business processes. What they had asked us to do was find out the difference between what it is would be covered in a digital transformation and how they could solve things with technology. Just as much they wanted to be able to understand how they would solve some of their problems with a little bit more synergy amongst the different divisions, locations, and brands. They also had some significant challenges with their organizational structure. From location to location, titles were different names. The reporting structure was different, even to the point where some had many more levels than other locations, and some were relatively flat. And trying to figure out a way of handling that from not just a digital transformation perspective, but the work streams that come from the business processes and the organizational change to support those types of transformational change in the digital space.
Right. So I think you just started to answer this question, but maybe you can dive into a little bit more. But what are some of the challenges that they were trying to address by going through that evaluation? You mentioned processes, you mentioned organizational design or consistency, between the different areas. Were there certain overarching goals or objectives they were trying to accomplish with the transformation overall?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, what they wanted to be able to do was manufacture and share manufacturing processes and share distribution models across their 42 locations. And they weren't able to do that because their systems were different. And what they were trying to figure out from a technological perspective, how that works, where, you could manufacture some brands in some locations, but not others. And even to the point where if brand A could be manufactured in 6 places, but it couldn't be distributed through other models that brand B shared with brand A as far as manufacturing was concerned, it was really kind of haphazard and pieced together a little bit randomly almost, it seemed, other than the fact that you had a lot of silos that came in from that acquisition-based structure. So what they brought us in to focus on was how can we use technology to also enable our business processes, because I want to be able to manufacture a brand that is housed on the East Coast and my West Coast offices and facilities, so that I can distribute that on the West Coast and be more localized in my structure, rather than sending it across the country to accommodate some of the customer base needs on that. And, the software systems really hamstrung them on that, because not only were they different, but they were pretty rudimentary in the idea that they worked well locally, but to have them communicate with other locations was really hard. And you had folks that were logging into several different green screen systems just to complete different orders across different locations.
So there's a organizational and operational consistency that they're striving for. You talked about the organization, the organizational piece of it, and just trying to tie that together. But then there's also in addition to the distribution challenges they had with being siloed in that way, there's also the customer experience that they focused on too, right? As far as having these different brands that they had gone out and acquired, but they're still sort of in the marketplace perceived or operationally delivered as different entities or completely different brands or companies. Is that true? And if so, how did that materialize in the evaluation?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So you have different brands that accommodate different parts of a construction model, we'll call it. And so you have some brands that can handle specific pieces of a build, and some brands that can handle others. And if you want to sell all pieces of one build to one customer, they were unable to invoice that appropriately, and they were unable to ship it in a way where they could plan for it. And so when you had somebody that's buying a couple parts here and there, customer experience model isn't that big a deal. But when you have somebody like a major construction firm who wants to build a lot of wants to put together a high number of builds, and you want to be the contract on that, being able to say, I can cover all of those materials efficiently and effectively without having to send 10 different invoices for 10 different parts of one build, it makes it difficult to show that prospect that you can handle their needs. And then after that, it also makes it difficult to manage a customer experience that's streamlined to the point where that customer knows who they're dealing with, right? Like if my parent company is called one thing, and I've got a dozen different acquisitions, all with different brands, and then get a dozen different invoices, there's a level of confusion that says, well, where did this company come from? I've got a contract with these guys. Why am I getting something from some random different company? It's a lot more difficult to set up and to get going. And at some point, that customer experience becomes prohibitively difficult to work with, to the point where they're likely to choose somebody else for business.
Yeah. And were they also focused on trying to be able to cross-sell different products, or were these totally different product lines?
Complementary products, substitute products, different levels of quality, right? Like if you want to do different builds, and you want to be able to have some of them at a standard quality and some of them at a premium quality, being able to handle those different levels of the order, that just adds a level of complexity that they were dealing with that I oversimplified in my example. But you start to think about the number of layers that go into that. Okay, well, if I get this set and that set, do they fit together? And if they do fit together, do I need some type of another piece to make it all go? And that cross-selling opportunity to say, hey, I see you've got 10 widgets. We've also got these pieces that tie those 10 widgets into one super widget. Would you like to buy that? It's going to save you money later, and construction materials and time and all that stuff. Being able to see that was impossible for them.